Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the COP Council. How are we all? Hopefully, all of you are having a fantastic Tuesday. Tuesday we're on today. Again, I really have to think about what day of the week we are on anyway. But how are we? Hopefully, everyone's having a good evening, wherever you are around the world. And of course, we're here to discuss probably the biggest topic, I think, in football at the moment. Of course, I'm first of all joined by, of course, Jack from the Anfield Road TV. We'll quickly get Jack's thoughts in a moment. But I think, of course, I think everyone has been talking about this over the last 24 hours. And I think, Jack, I know you've done videos on it. Obviously, we did a video on it yesterday as well. But what was, obviously, if you guys are living under a rock, I should say as well, of course, obviously, if you have not seen yet, of course, of David COOTE making remarks towards Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool Football Club, of course, you guys can obviously go and find that on social media, probably everywhere as well. But Jack, first of all, thank you for coming on. How are we? And what was your reaction to seeing the video yesterday?
All right, Connor. All right, chat. How are we as well? And I think disappointed. Really, I think, in all honesty, obviously, it's not a good look for the Premier League, for the referees as well. It is disappointing. I think when you are a referee in that position, in such a high ranking position within football as well, um, and for him as well. Obviously, it was a well-paying job. It was everything really for him. He's worked his backside off to get where he was as well. So it's obviously you never like to see anyone lose the job. Most importantly, but it is disappointing from his perspective because when you are in such a position as a Premier League referee, obviously you've got everything that comes along with it. Yeah, it's obviously, and I know I done a couple of shows last couple of nights as well. It's for me, it was just the varied bias in regards. Obviously, you've got a couple of statistics in regards to how many games David Coote has refereed since the turn of obviously the pandemic season where Liverpool did win the league as well. But it's never nice to see people lose a job as well for anyone out there. But I think it was disappointing to see the video that did come out, and obviously, I don't think he can referee in the Premier League ever again because I think people that have said, "Oh, he could come back and not referee Liverpool games," but I think the one thing that every football fan is it's tinfoil hats at the ready, all that good, not good stuff. But in regards to everyone says about, obviously, referees not disliking their own football club. I think every football fan's been there every single week where you're going, "Oh, is this referee got something against us or whatnot?" But obviously it is disappointing, and obviously, chat. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. But it is disappointing. But it's a bit of a mad one, really, because there's one thing that obviously everyone says everything, like in regards to obviously I bet there's managers, bet there's players as well that say stuff behind closed doors, but that's behind closed doors. It's in house, really. It's not obviously on video to the wild world, the wide world, really. Even if managers or coaches or even referees have a dislike to certain managers, which is not expected, but I think the way in which certain managers act in the dugout, I think, like in any job, it is difficult, really. But
it's expected in that sense as well. Like I feel like as well though, like even like again, we'll talk about different things obviously on tonight's show, but I think obviously all of us, I think, has had this inkling that when they look at Premier League managers and managers or referees, and you go, and I think we've all said it behind closed doors, like not every single referee supports a League One or League Two side. And I think we've all said this, haven't we? Look, it doesn't matter what they put on a piece of paper, like, "Oh, I support, Leighton Orient," for example. Look, it's everybody knows, like, there's certain officials. We have said it, I think, on both of our videos that we knew for years that David COOTE, there was something there, again, and that's just our opinion and our thoughts. And I think that was a lot of people's thoughts and opinions as well. But I also feel that a lot of people, even now, are probably going back and looking at certain individual things in terms of decisions or anything else in that regard as well. But I think, you mentioned it just now, and if anybody has seen, there has been a report that's come out suggesting that the PGML, and again, I will put this pretty huge grain of salt onto it once again, because again, we're so in the unknown, and we're also, again, at the beginning of an investigation. But there was a report that came out that the PGMOL knew about a video, not the specifics of it, but they knew of a certain video back when it happened. What's this, around 2021, 2022, that they found out about it, but they didn't know the circumstances of it as well. But I think, Jack, in your opinion, I know, again, like we said about a lot of people's frustration about it, and obviously when we speak about, we'll probably get more in detail later on about, what's next for the PGMOL. But I think now this just leaves a huge amount of uncertainty in terms of confidence in the rest of the refereeing division, in terms of how capable they are for because again, every team will complain about referees. That's the norm. Then I say that, but I think everybody has that thought in the back of their mind at the moment that it could mean that, again, maybe we do need to look more into the refereeing department in terms of maybe finance, or in terms of, again, just overall review in that sense. But what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, it kind of does bring the game into disrepute, really, in regards to the trust in terms of the referees. Obviously, we know Howard Webb, especially, it's come off the back of an interview that was quite positive in regards to the football fans in Howard Webb. We haven't seen it. Go and check it out. Where Gary Neville and obviously the other pundits on there, and the interviewees asked him questions, and he was quite candid, really. And obviously, as we've said, he very much knocked back a couple of those questions in regards to the referees favoured and certain, as you said at the top of the show, in regards to do they support certain clubs and all that. It is difficult. I think the Premier League is very broad. It's one of the biggest leagues in world football. It's watched by absolute hundreds of millions of people as well. So there's going to be, obviously, it's like if we were refereeing a Manchester United game. Not that we'd give penalties against or to or from or whatever.
Of course he would.
But certainly we'll be tweeting referees in the Liverpool kit anyway. But I babble. What a legend. But yeah, no, it's madness, mate. It is. But the main people within the Premier League, the PGMOL as well, it's not a good look, really. I think in regards to the people that can sort it in-house are the people that are the top of the PGMOL. There'll be obviously countless interviews in their meetings, for that matter, and saying they will have a in-house, obviously, the investigation currently going on, and we will find out a lot more in regards to their in terms of their interview as well. So for me, the referees need to get better. I think every football fan has said that. I think even people within the PGMOL as well, people that work for them, would clearly admit as well that the standards that they probably all set themselves in regards to doing the best possible job that they can possibly do, they can clearly do that as well. But I think in terms of it's up to the people in charge in the PGMOL really to stand up, really, and for the great referees in there as well, Con and chat, and even non-Liverpool fans or whatnot. There's going to be a lot of very good, well-respected referees that love doing their job, and they're paid quite well as well, because they've worked, as I said with Dave Coote, they've worked their backside off to be where they are, and hopefully the good referees come to the forefront, really, and just. Obviously, with the investigation, we'll be able to come out and say what's what. But I think in terms of everyone now questioning the transparency from the majority of the referees, every single referee that referees any single Premier League match for that matter, then it will very much be a case of, right, it's not a good look, but don't let it drag the other referees down that actually do a good job. I know, obviously, us as football fans, we like it's easy. It's easy to jump on a referee's back, but at the end of the day, the main thing is if it's a clear daylight crazy decision, then sound. But it is an extremely difficult job to be a Premier League referee. Obviously, the speed of it and everything, it does take a lot of quality to do that job as well, and that's why they are reffing in European games, World Cup games as well. And yeah.
Well, no, we 100% I agree with you. I think the other thing as well, I think we've mentioned about how I think when you look at Premier League players, and we look at the age of a Premier League player is probably capped off at about 38, 39 nowadays, due to, again, obviously, the amount of the fatigue in the game and so on as well. And again, not saying so much that this is on referees as well, but obviously we know obviously Luke, who's a good friend of ours again. Obviously, I think he explained off camera in terms of the refereeing pyramid then and how that happens as well. But I feel like we don't have any young referees in the Premier League, and for me, which I think would be a great insight into, again, you see all like these referees that are around 40 onwards. I think probably the youngest one I think is probably in the 30s.
Yeah, to that point, Gone, and everyone watching or listening as well, it's everyone's played football like when you're a kid and when you grow up as well. It's an extremely difficult job. It's a job that you have to work hard in, and you have to take a lot of flack, really, in regards to if it's Sunday League, if it's Premier League, Championship. You don't have and abuse is not warranted for that matter for anyone, really. But it's the football world we live in terms of it's wrong. All of it is wrong. But it's not a luxury job that not a lot of people want to do, if I'm being honest. It's either do you want to be a professional footballer or a semi-professional footballer or be a referee. I think 99, if you've got that ability to be a semi-pro or whatnot, you're going to become a footballer. You're not going to become a referee. And I think, obviously, Howard Webb was done, I think it was a video on the overlap, as we mentioned before. He said that the level in terms of the recruitment process is getting better, but it can be, it's up to the FA, it's up to the PGMOL to make that job a lot more enticing for people to become a referee as well. I think I done my refereeing qualifications a very long time ago, but I only done the first level. I think everyone can do the first level of being a referee. You can get your qualifications and that, but I think keeping referees, being referees, is one of the most difficult jobs for the PGMO or any refereeing association. Yeah, it's not an attractive job, to say the least. No. Especially if you're in the Premier League getting paid well, but it's a lot of pressure. There's one thing being a footballer, but being a referee, you can have all the technology, but if you're within that PGMOL and you know that you need help from your association as well, and you're not getting that support in terms of there's not a bit of transparency, the improvements of VAR, there's so many questions really, but yeah, hopefully we will see an improvements in the refereeing standards post the last month, really.
Yeah, no, I would 100% agree, and I think obviously stuff needs to be done for that. I think, though, when we look at English referees or certainly Premier League referees, I think when you do compare it to the rest of Europe, I think, look, there's no hiding in that fact that I think a lot of us are in agreement that the standard, I think, it is a lot lower compared to Europe. I think obviously some people may have that, different opinions to that. Of course, obviously let us know your guys' thoughts. And of course, it's like Jack said, though, again, look, once you're off the football field, look, I don't care, who you are. No referee should be getting constant abuse. But again, once, and even on the pitch, no one deserves to be getting a ridiculous amount of abuse. And I think overall, obviously, things need to be worked upon, from the top to the bottom. I think in that regard, but I think going back onto again in terms of David Coote and what happens next with him, especially that again, obviously, if you guys haven't seen, obviously yesterday when we spoke about it again, obviously the reports that were coming out that first of all he denied that it was him, and then of course they then investigated whether or not if it was AI generated, which come on, I don't think anybody's going to be doing that in that sense. But look, it's 2024, and a lot of fake media is out there. But again, of course, I think 2 hours later he did come out then and say that it was him, but he did not. He could not remember or could not think about what he said in that video and could not remember it either. And of course, that's where we know up to now. Of course, in terms of that, we know there's an investigation. Of course, he's been suspended by the FA, PGMOL, and UEFA. That come out today. He's been suspended by UEFA as well. I think one thing we do need to talk about though as well, and one person in this that nobody's really spoken about is Jurgen Klopp. In my opinion, like nobody's spoken at all about again his side of and his thoughts of things, because again we've heard nothing from Jurgen himself. There's been no statement, there's been nothing in regards to it. And again, probably Jurgen, you might not even know, who knows, because again, Jurgen's not really a social media person.
He would have been advised, obviously, with the investigation come. As we all know, he probably just to be quiet at the minute.
Yeah, no, that's true. But I think it's also something with him. You have to, again, think about, what is he thinking at the moment in terms of, seeing the video and seeing certain things, of course. And you mentioned early on in terms of, again, how many games David Coote has taken charge of Liverpool. And when you look at that stat in particular, and when we spoke about earlier on about there's been a report suggesting that the PGMOL have known about this for some time. Again, David Coote has only refereed, and again, this isn't VAR or linesman or whatever. He's only single-handedly refereed a Liverpool game 3 times in the last 5 years. I don't know if that's suspicious. To me, it is a little bit, but would you also say it's a bit suspicious, Jack, that the fact that he's only refereed 3 Liverpool games, including the game on the weekend?
I'd say no, really, mate, because the way I look at that, I know everyone's making a meal of him. Oh, he's not been referee for that amount of games, though, as you've alluded to there. But people on VAR have a massive impact on games as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like they're not making decisions. I think for the last couple of years, we've seen David Coote on countless VAR decisions. And this is where the bias comes into play, because if he has got a big bias against Liverpool in that regard, then he shouldn't be officiating games of Liverpool, even in the VAR control room as well. Well, for me, it's one of them, mate. And this is where the transparency in regards to every football fan up and down the UK as well, doesn't matter what pyramid of football you are watching, you just want the referee to do a good job. You don't want bias to come into it in any job or in any professional job as well. You want that professional, whatever job they do to do the best possible thing for their job and for the customers in which they serve as well. I think that's the most important priority. But I think the main thing for any football fan is obviously is bias. Really, I think there is some bias in form of refereeing. It's not good in terms of the overall package of the Premier League as well, because the Premier League's watched by hundreds of millions of people, probably billions around the world. They have got such an important role to play within these games of football. I don't like, as I said on my show yesterday, I don't like seeing the referees being the be-all and end-all, really. I think
the big thing for me is I think all of us now, I don't know whether or not if this is because of social media and the way the game's gone in that sense, in terms of we know everything about everyone.
Everything's analysed in 2024.
Yeah, and it's like, but like even if you go back 15 years ago, I
no
feel
one
like
cared about referees.
Nobody knew referee's name. Again, you'd know the odd one or two, but you wouldn't know, you wouldn't know the full list of managers that referee in the Premier League. But now I think everybody, again, as soon as you see the face, you know instantly who it is. And I think that's something where, again, is that down on media? Is that down on certain other things in that aspect of things? Because again, there's a reason why, and in my opinion, I think this needs to be brought back in some sense as well, where we used to be able to have the referees come out and say on certain decisions, but obviously come out to the whole stadium and go, oh, this is why I didn't give this. But referees used to be able to give their opinion on why they didn't give a certain thing, or this happened for a certain reason. And I feel like that, that transparency in terms of, again, allowing the referees to have a voice in that sense, I think would be great. Certainly because you get more clarity in games.
And you get to know the referees as well more.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I know I just said that I don't want to be seeing referees, but if a referee come out and explained his decision after the game, it would cancel everything out for like the good 24 hours after the game.
Yeah.
Like there's sports channels out there that dedicate hours worth of ref analysis. Not like what? Ref analysis. It should be about football. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's more than that, though. Like when we speak about it,
it's like a deep dive on refereeing decisions. Yeah, it's like, why? Like, we should be analysing football, not refereeing decisions. But we are in a world now, in terms of Premier League, it's that big. Teams are missing out on top four. They're missing out on league titles. They're missing out on staying in the division as well. They're missing out on a lot of things. And the more money that is awashed within football, the more scrutinized these decisions are going to be. Because, yeah, it was just crazy seeing the Forest owner come storming out of the stands. That's unprecedented. Well, it's unprecedented in English football. I know he's done that in Turkey as well on certain occasions as well. And we started on that. And that was bad in itself. But you should not. But obviously, that's one individual incident. But you can get the frustration, not just from every football fan, really. Because we don't want to be talking about referees. We want to be talking about these world-class football players. We want to be talking about these world-class managers in the dugout doing tactical switches as well. And like for the younger generation, when we were all younger as well, if you went to park or whatnot, you want to reenact like your favourite footballer or whatnot, or with your mates and all that. And at the end of the day, we're all sat spending 20 hours after the game's finished talking about refereeing decisions right now.
Well, it's like VAR. It's like, well, I think obviously people will debate about VAR and whether or not it's good for football or bad for football. I think there's so many simple things I think they don't get right. In terms of, like, again, allowing like this whole thing of allowing somebody to talk in your ear or try and go, oh well, in my opinion, this is what's new. Like, simply tell the man to go to the screen. Simple as, and again, you can confer with certain aspects, but even when you're listening on VAR, the other guy's telling him what's happened. The guy on VAR has told the referee on the pitch, like, oh, this has happened, and then that gives the referee on the field a certain opinion already before he's even had a look.
Like there shouldn't be VAR assistants. Why do you need a VAR assistant? Like all of
Liverpool against Spurs. That's what happens.
No, that's fully get your tinfoil hat on at the ready, mate, after that game, because for some bizarre reason there was no replays, and then the channel had to come out with a statement explaining why there was no replays. Because if we rewind our set-top boxes that we were watching the footy on, we could clearly, it takes literally, if someone had that channel on in the VAR control room, just rewind it back 2 seconds and just check out the incident. But yeah, we could all, like, I would feel confident on doing VAR on a match week in where I am now. Like I do a live stream watch along, I deal with the chat as well. I could certainly deal with VAR. All I'd have to do is I'd watch the replay twice and I'd come up to with my own conclusion because it was at the Ebu one. Like you sat there watching the Ebu decision against Chelsea. Why did it take them half an hour to see clear as day? Ebu's left leg was playing Jackson on. Like, mate, why are we watching the same replay from the same angle 50 times? Like, come on, boys.
I will also say that mine's. Let's not talk about offsides and betting weekends and like what happens in the group.
But yeah, like if the PGMOL want me to hire me, like just don't stick me on Liverpool games because I'd be giving Liverpool all the red. I'd be sending Bruno Fernandes off. Wait, but that's where my bias comes from. Then I'm joking, by the way, as well. But like,
it's true. Like there's so, and when we
you
talk
don't have the average. You can't have the average football fan Joe on, really, because like because bias is in it. But that's where you've got to select the correct people for the job.
Do you think then in that aspect of things? So seeing different people have different opinions on this, in terms of bringing in foreign referees, because there would be no bias then in that aspect of things, where again you wouldn't have to fully, not like a Champions League night where again I think everyone, including the ref, the linesman, the fourth official, and VAR, again they're all from different nations, but bringing in a few experienced referees from other countries, could that do the Premier League a good thing, or a good adjustment in that sense? Like I've seen people say yes, people say no. For me, I would be for it, because I think there are referees out there that can do better jobs than certain referees, but it is questionable.
There's such a disparity really in regards to the European refs and the English referees. It's crystal clear, crystal clear as anything. The quality and the standards does quickly go up. I know when we've listened, go and check out. I know probably the last thing you want to be watching tonight, chat. But if you want to, go and check out Clattenburg's interview. I've forgotten who it was. I watched it a couple of months ago, and it was interesting. It was interesting insight listening to Clattenburg. Really, I was disappointed that he went. But again, I think the pressure of his job must have been
realistically.
Yeah, obviously it was shocking what happened there in that account, really. But that again, it's mad. Like when it's disappointing to say the least, really. In regards to, you want to see the best referees in England, but there's not really a good pool of referees. If we're being honest, we can't all. I say Michael Oliver for me is my favourite referee. But then you'll speak to another Premier League fan and they'll absolutely despise Oliver. So it's like
Anthony Taylor. It's like Anthony Taylor. Like Chelsea fans despise Anthony Taylor because they constantly think he costs them points. And I think that's the same for every club, unless you're Arsenal, who everybody's against Arsenal supposedly, wherever you listen off anyway. But big up chat as well. Hopefully everyone's good as well anyway. But big up Damo as well, saying not surprised that Dermot Gallagher and Mike Dean and the PGMOL lads are starting to close ranks. I think that's what he's meant to say, and downplaying any bias from David COOTE rather than stepping back and thinking how can they remove bias as well. Yeah, like again, I think it's very telling that everything in football everyone has an opinion on. I think it's very telling that Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher hasn't said anything about it, where they are the two spearheads of Sky Sports in terms of them speaking about it. I think that is huge, and I think that screams volume in what currently is at the minute.
They won't be legally allowed, though, Con, and we all know why.
They can. They got nothing to do with the investigation.
No, but they do. They are on the biggest Premier League channel, like in Premier League football, and in the UK as well. It's watched by millions.
They can have their own.
Yeah, they can discuss it after the sense where everything's been dealt with, but I think in this account, really, they can't say, because their opinion is listened to by millions. It is. It's different from me and you. Like we were speaking to chat and all that, But what they say is listened to a lot more. It holds a lot more weight in that regard, and especially when you are contracted to Sky Sports and everything as well, it is really difficult for them to say what they think. Really, for me, I don't.
I'd slightly disagree with that. I think again, I'm not saying again come out on Sky Sports, but I think again that both of them have their own platforms to come out and have an opinion on it. Because again, I don't think that would derail anything or interrupt anything in that sense. I think the fact that both of them have not really, or anyone in that fact have not really come out and said anything in regards to it, I think it's very telling. And I think if they did speak about something, I think the Howard Webb overlap breakfast episodes, I think, will stop from now on. But no, like all joking aside, look, I do think it is a very weird situation. All of it is, because this has never happened before. It's not like if or there's an example of this ever. Again, like I think even when you look back at in other countries, you think maybe in Italy, when we talk about referees, they obviously Spain at the minute. I know Barcelona and Real Madrid are currently arguing between themselves between corruption in that sense, but we've never heard in the Premier League anyway.
It's just mad in Italy. They were bringing suitcases to the referees' rooms or something, weren't they? So it's just crazy. Go and check out the documentaries, chat. It is mad. But I think for every football fan, you should always question it. I think in life, you should always question stuff, look for answers as well, the correct answers, most importantly as well, and look at the evidence. In regards to football as well, to say that football in the UK, not to say that's not corrupt, but it certainly isn't. But to say that it is not, this is why an investigation is going to be getting probed, and rightly so. That it needs to be fully investigated.
Well, to be fair, like in fairness to Howard Webb, of course, he did speak out about it, didn't he? Saying that again, that they've obviously looked at it, they've assessed it, and of course, they can't speak on anything about it because, of course, obviously, it is an open investigation, like we've said throughout the show. But I think, again, when going back on David COOTE himself, for me, there is no way he can referee another game ever in the Premier League. Like, I think that's him done. Like, of course, there's already been, and again, I'm not saying like a person should lose their job, but obviously the evidence is there, and there's no impartialment there anymore. You can't turn around and say, oh, well, he may not do this or he may not do that. Who knows in that aspect of things? But of course, there's already been reports suggesting that again he could go to like a Saudi Pro League or something like that. Maybe in the future.
Depends in terms of the licensing as well, because I think it was, as you said, top of the show there's a FIFA come out today, literally, or last 24 hours. Have said, do you want them to step back from the games in which they did have? Was it for the
UEFA?
Nations League?
UEFA.
Yeah, the Nations League as well. So UEFA and FIFA obviously they have a big say in refereeing in general, really, as well. And as we said, it's made shockwaves within the Premier League, but certainly every federation of refereeing in European football and in world football as well certainly would have been at the top of everyone's agenda, really, because we all hold the Premier League in such high esteem in regards to the standards and the quality that we do see on a week-to-week basis. And it has damaged the reputation. It's damaged the quality of the Premier League as well. And anything that does that, it's disappointing.
Yeah, no, I think the only thing that I look at it and go, the genuinely only thing I could think about him potentially like keeping his job would be the fact that they take so long with the investigation. Everybody forgets about it, but like that's going to take years. So it's like that's never going to happen.
2024, lad. Everyone remembers everything.
Exactly.
Like,
no, exactly.
It won't be allowed to get.
No, like again, but but something again, because obviously, if the rumors are true, where it got leaked and how it got leaked. Of course, it was from a WhatsApp group. I think Nottingham cricket WhatsApp. I think it was the report came out and said as well that was taken from. But again,
Again,
even
you're speaking on speculation as
yes,
well.
of
It's
course it is.
important not to
It was
obviously
from a report.
speculate as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think overall, like you said, it is damaging. But I also think it's that sense of, like we said at the beginning of the show, I think every fan now will have that thought of, again, can you trust the referee to make an impartial decision? And it'll obviously bring up certain question marks and so on. Again, I think that the best thing I think for the PGMOL is the fact that it is the international break. Like the fact that it's come out now and not, obviously we've had the season so far, but even if we had games this weekend, like I think that's not taking the limelight away from it, but I think it would be spoken about a lot more going into the weekend's fixtures if it was like, for example, look at this weekend coming up after the international break, where you've got City against Spurs, you've got Liverpool against Southampton, you've got I think Arsenal playing I think one of the big boys as well. I'm not too sure, but again, it would obviously bring a lot of questions into that. I think now, obviously now it's time to reflect on it. But I think overall, I think a lot of people are now just waiting and determined to see what happens next, and whether or not it's going to be a quick investigation or are they going to prolong it in that sense as well. I'd be surprised to see what happens anyway. But they have no excuses. They have the technology and still F up. If they were more open and upfront, they would get a lot more slack from players and fans.
Interesting.
Possibly. Could possibly see it. But I think overall, I think obviously looking at, like I think we've already discussed in length in terms of, what the PGML could do now. And what going forwards, we can look at. I think obviously a lot of we spoke about it in terms of there needs to be a lot more in terms of the fans and the referees in that sense, where again, even Howard Webb, our show that that we speak about, it's not it's not a show that everyone talks about so much because it's very edited in that sense that certain things,
It's
of
a
course.
it's a studio
Yeah.
program, and that's very scripted and obviously on topics. Really,
Mm.
it's not like it's an open
Yeah, it's not
mic
an open
for
mic.
fans to ask them
Mm.
questions that they would find really difficult. Not to say that they won't be able to answer them, but I think that goes to show why the referees are advised certainly not to go and do interviews, because as we know with certain footballers are media trained to an extent, which is important because they need to know the rules of media, what the media is. It's all about getting the big story. It's like this David Cruz, it's a massive story. Like it's crazy, but yeah, it's important that obviously you don't have like footballers like spilling the tactics on like your trading stuff and all that. Not to say many of them would do that, but there's certain footballers that would do interviews, and you're probably like, well,
Well, the amount of Liverpool fans that lost their heads. The Pep Linders released a book that apparently just told everyone Liverpool's secrets. That Jesus Christ, remember that? Anyway, but I think overall, I think just in general, we know the basis things now, of course, and it will take time. On of course looking at it overall anyway. But Jack, have you got any final things to say before we shoot off about the situation, or just your general thoughts overall?
yeah, it's just in terms of David Coote as well. I think it's important mentally. Hopefully, he's doing well. First and foremost, obviously, it's not good to see him lose a job for anyone at that matter. Really, obviously, it was disappointing to see the video and everything. But the main thing is he's mentally okay, and that's the main thing. And yeah, whatever the future does hold, it's it's. Yeah, I think there is. It's difficult, really, but it's up to the PGMOL. Really, I think for me, if he wasn't refereeing Liverpool games or wasn't in refereeing games that Liverpool were associated in that league, like if he was refereeing the Championship, I don't think I've had any issues because it's not impacting Liverpool. But it's difficult. It's up to
But because it
PGMOL
is
to make
impacting Liverpool, it makes a difference.
Yeah, because if you put Liverpool out the picture, then Liverpool out of the picture. Then I think he can't impact games of Liverpool. But it's when he's refereeing games. This is where the bias comes into it. That might impact Liverpool's title, top four, whatever does happen. But I think outside the Premier League, I think he'll be not fine, but it's up to the PGMOL. And if he does apologise, comes out, does a video, and says he was in the wrong and everything, but it's difficult. It's up to them, really.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like I said, it for me, like again, obviously, the person himself, hopefully he is doing okay, like you said. But I think overall, I think he will lose his job, and again, that's something again, like you said, in terms of not on the field type things, but when we're talking about VAR and you look, and obviously I know certain people have gone back and looked at decisions that have impacted Liverpool, like again, like for example, like the Rodri handball at Everton, that again, Liverpool was not involved in the game, but that game had huge consequences for the title race in that sense. Again, did Liverpool single-handedly lose the title on that game? No, it's a season overall. Of course, many things happen. But when a blatant thing happens and it has such, an impact towards the end of the season, again, of course, that will create a lot of headlines in that sense. And again, obviously, you can go and have a look on social media at, of course, different stuff as well. But I think, obviously, there are many things that need to be done. And, of course, obviously, I think once, obviously, the investigation is done, I think Howard Webb, I think, needs to, come out and of course, say that what are the changes that are going to be happening, what's the step-by-step to improve the game in that sense. And also, as like we said, we don't want to be talking about referees week in, week out. We don't want to be discussing, what little details they've missed out or what they have done wrong in that sense. But it's, again, just get the simples right. And that, I think, for me, I don't know about you, Jack, but for me, that's what's wrong at the minute with referees, is the simple things or the little like things that they should basically get right is not there. And again, we know everyone's human, but it's just the simple protocols are just not there at the moment, for me anyway.
For me, I know everyone's got their thoughts on technology within football, but as I said with VAR, and I had my little VAR rant before, there's decisions where you sat there going, boys, you've got about 50 million cameras in the stadium, you're checking the thing for 5 minutes, take a step back, say to the referee, we can't clarify the issue, the offside or whatever, we're going to go with your on-field decision and then leave it at that. Not spending half an hour on a decision that takes 2 seconds to do when you've got the lines and you're drawing lines off your head and wherever you want to draw the lines off. But technology within football is good, but it's just being controlled by absolute silly sausages. But does that come down to training? Does that come down to training from the PGMOL? Are they getting trained properly? Because the main thing is, I think I bet there's certain loads of managers in there and certain players as well that absolutely are fuming because it's their day-to-day job. They work all week and decisions are getting completely missed or given wrongfully in certain situations and scenarios where you're like that the fact that it was a technology fault. Was it when Villa potentially should have got relegated? Was it Sheffield United?
Yeah.
The ball was in the goal and that was a technology fault. Could that have happened any day of the week? But again, that comes down to training, making sure the technology is correct, it's switched on, it's working 20 minutes before kickoff. But it's up to them.
Yeah, no, 100%. Would agree with you there. Big up Damo as well, saying fully expect the PGMOL to issue guidelines for referees on a night out. I'm sure it will be a well done, boys. Good process as well. Yeah, we're not going to talk about that anyway. But big up to you guys as well in the comments. Well, thank you very much for tuning in as well. Of course, obviously, as speaking about, of course, what is next for the PGMOL. Of course, there'll be obviously more, I think, to discuss over the next couple of weeks. Obviously, once we find out a bit more, maybe on the situation and other things as well, going around, of course, the investigation.
Last thing anyone
so
wants to be speaking about for all of us as referees, Chess.
Yeah.
Want to be speaking about the
football.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to be talking about football. I want to be talking about Liverpool being top of the league in everything at the minute.
And we're flying. We're absolutely flying.
Well, we'll talk about that tomorrow, but for sure. But obviously tomorrow we're going to talk obviously about Trent, because of course his injury doesn't look that bad in the end. So again, great.
He's just done what all the United players done under Fergie. Fergie went, lads, just see it out. Just
that's talk about the media saying it's Thomas Tuchel's fault for the amount of withdrawals from the England squad, which is quite hilarious in that sense as well. Anyway, but big up Jack as well. Thank you for coming on, mate. If you got anything to shout out before we do shoot off?
Yeah, the Reds are gonna win the league. Wait, well, yeah, thank you for having me on, mate. And yeah, we're gonna fly to the top of pinnacle of world football, up the Reds, Arne Slot's Reds. Well,
Liverpool do now have a 60% chance of winning the Premier League, so we'll take that.
Is that the computer saying that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a lot more cleverer than most people. the computer anyway, certainly.
Well, to be fair, there's been 5 teams with the same points around this time after 11 games. All 5 teams went on to win the Premier League, so
5 out of 5 at the same points and everything.
Yeah. So
and yet you just 2 minutes ago looked at the ground.
I looked at the ground because we're not tempting fate, mate. Look, we're gonna enjoy the ride. We're gonna be happy, and we're gonna enjoy Arne Slot's Reds absolutely batter everyone. But we'll take it game by game. Anyway, but big up to everyone in the chat as well. Anyway, but we'll be back tomorrow for another episode. Of course, obviously tomorrow like I said, we'll probably talk about Trent or any other bits of news that does come out. Anyway, but again, we are missing the footy because who the hell wants to watch friggin' England, Ireland, wherever they've got. Anyway, but
can I just ask, where's your World Cup, please, lad?
And that's him gone for the rest of the show. But give us a shit about a World Cup. Freaking absolute dross that is, lad.
I know I'm having Beckham over Gareth Bale. Wait, what?
You just know that's not true. You're not taking David Beckham over Gareth Bale. You're just not.
I don't know.
I already know you know. Yeah, you decide, chat. It's Gareth Bale. But anyway, we'll leave it there. But until next time, that's going to be it from us. Anyway, and hopefully we'll see you guys tomorrow. But until next time, we'll see you later. Ta-ra.